Disabled by Wilfred Owen, the poem we've been doing. We're looking at stanza 3 today. Today's word of the day, preemptive, which is an adjective. You've maybe heard of it as a preemptive strike. So preempt means to serve or intend to prevent or forestall something, especially to prevent attack of an enemy or to disable an enemy. So in a wee example, the country took preemptive action against the enemy. Today's spelling word to get added to your list of spelling words, one of them for the spelling bee a week tomorrow, is premeditated. Premeditated. And as usual, the cheesy pun of the day. Anything that is unrelated to elephants is irrelevant. Okay, so stanza 3 it is. There was an artist silly for his face, for it was younger than his youth last year. Now he is old, his back will never brace. He's lost his colour very far from here, poured it down shell holes till the veins ran dry, and half his lifetime lapsed in the hot race, and leap of purple spurted from his thigh. So, we're going to go over the questions that I've put on the resources page. If you have done them, that's great. You might want to add to your answers. If you haven't, then this will just be a revision exercise of the poem and it'll help you write notes on it and annotate it, etc. So this stanza starts off describing how attractive the soldier was. What is the effect of the inversion last year at the end of the second line? So the description, artist silly for his face, that obviously could be a metaphor. The artist idea for a girl who was once attracted to him or fancied him implies that he was a very handsome man in his time before war, and that obviously she couldn't get enough of that particular face or him. The word choice of silly is effective because just like when you're a wee kid, you behave in a sort of silly manner, so it just links to his youthfulness and we get a sense of fun, the idea of being silly if you act silly. So that could perhaps give us a little suggestion as to why he enlisted, because he was just, you've maybe heard the, oh, you're a silly wee boy. So it's just the idea that he didn't really think it through, he acted quite impulsively. Like stanza 2, this one starts off by describing his pre-war carefree happy life. It describes that he was younger than his youth, so obviously that suggests that before war he actually looked younger than he actually was, so he was younger than his true age. He was fresh-faced and handsome at that point. The alliteration of younger and youth obviously draws our attention to those words to again suggest his innocence and young age, and physical beauty as well. We get the idea that he was, cherub-like, sort of angelic. The inversion of last year, so when you have inversion, it means that, the sentence or the word order has been inverted, so it's been moved around. So it should start last year, blah, blah, blah. You would expect it to come at the beginning of the sentence, but Owen has inverted it with also a comma beforehand, which means that we have to pause, which emphasises the expression last year. So that obviously is just used to portray how quickly his life as he knew it has transformed and deteriorated. It feels like a lifetime ago, although it was only a year ago when he was fresh-faced and young. Now it's just like he was a different person, so it's just how quickly his life has changed for the worse. So what does it suggest about his life? Well, all of these techniques, all of the lines so far have been just used again to show the transformation from being young, happy and carefree to being prematurely old, and obviously that's linked to his injuries and his physical disability. So Owen in this part of the poem is just portraying how quickly the soldier's life and anyone else's life can deteriorate. Alright, so the next question is, a contrast is created between his youth and now he is old. How could this have happened metaphorically within a year? We've kind of touched on that. So the word choice of now he is old, the word now acts as a temporal marker. You know, you could think of it like a turning point. So it's returning us to the present. So the end of his former happy life as we knew it has now been transformed, and now, you know, we're in a different era now. So now he is old. We're back in the present day. So in less than a year, war has basically aged him. Everything that he's been through has physically aged him and emotionally aged him. You know, obviously he's going to be traumatised, not from his injuries, but from what he endured and witnessed throughout the war. So that charming, fresh-faced and innocent young man from last year has gone, and now he's left, you know, looking old, physically feeling old and drawn. The next question, what is the effect of the alliteration in back will never brace? What does it emphasise regarding his physical health? So again, back, brace, it's quite a harsh sounding word to suggest some kind of anger or resentment. So obviously a brace is something that supports you, or a prop, so that implies that he'll never be able to prop himself up again. You know, his injuries, because he's lost his legs, he won't be able to use his back again, so it's pointless. It's not going to do it's not going to do its job. Due to the war injuries, and there's the word choice of never. So in the last stanza we had the idea that he'll never be touched by women again, and here we've got that definitive final never again to suggest a sense of hopelessness, and he realises that, you know, he'll never ever walk again. He can't go back from his injuries. Next question, the expression he's lost his colour could be ambiguous, which means it's got two meanings. So usually when you refer to ambiguity, you talk about a literal meaning or definition and metaphorical meaning. So he's lost his colour. So literally it could just be physically he looks ill, like he looks pale, withdrawn, you know, he's gone chalk white, ghost-like. So that links back to stanza 1 when we were saying the way he's described is almost like he wishes he was dead, and that he looks like he's half dead. We've also got reference to colour again, so that's one of the symbols all the way through this poem, which we've touched on in the other lessons as well. So he's lost his colour. Now, colour metaphorically, you know, we talk about the colour of youth, because, you know, when you're young, you're full of energy and vibrancy and life. So, you know, at this point he's lost that. So that's, you know, the metaphorical representation of colour is that he's lost. It symbolises that youth and energy of the past. So now that's gone. It also links to the artist from earlier in the stanza, so it could link back to her. So now that he's lost his colour, you know, you wouldn't really be attracted to a black or grey painting. It's going to be quite depressing. So that's kind of the same here. He's no longer visually attractive to artists or women, so that's now lost as well. So it could tie into that idea. So the next question, remember in the battlefield, the soldier describes how half his lifetime lapsed while he was waiting to be rescued. Discuss the effect of this hyperbole. So the active verb of pouring, so it talks about him pouring his life away. So linking back to the threw away his knees from earlier, that again suggests the idea that he is partly responsible for the situation that he's in and for his injuries and his disability now. So again, it links to the idea that war is wasteful, it's got no purpose, so, you know, there was no reason why he should have enlisted in the first place. There's a reference to shell holes, and at this point in the poem we're basically launched right into the active scene of, you know, of no man's land on the battlefield basically. So we're returning to the location and the scene of his injuries. So Owen effectively brings us right into his memory so that we relive it with him. So half his lifetime lapsed. So that refers to the length of time it was on, basically on no man's land when he was waiting to be rescued. Obviously they had to wait until, you know, the attacks had finished before the medics went on to the battlefield to try and see who was left. So that length of time could have taken hours, and obviously a lot of men died while they were waiting to be rescued or were waiting to be medically treated, or their injuries were worsened because of that, because obviously the more blood loss you have, then the chances of you surviving reduce. So that just links to the fact that as he was waiting to be rescued, it just felt like his lifetime was pouring away, you know, metaphorically and literally because of the blood loss. So it felt like he, you know, he was worried that he was going to die while he was waiting. The idea of a hot race as well, that could be a couple of things. So obviously, if you think about war being a hot race, you know, you've got the literal heat of explosions and fire, but you've also got metaphorically hot because, you know, it's obviously very dramatic and frantic, and that's obviously what he likes to hear. So it's basically a race to stay alive for Owen on the battlefield, but again, it could suggest the idea of men running around all over the place. Okay, the vivid description of his injuries creates a strong impression. Comment on the effectiveness of the expression or the alliteration leap of purple spurted. So at this point we can vividly picture this active scene of him and his injuries as he's lying on the ground. So we can visualise the blood pouring out, which is emphasised with the leap of purple spurted. So we've got the alliteration of the p, p, p. The colour purple has connotations of energy and vibrancy, but here, because it's describing the blood loss, it actually refers to deoxygenated blood, so it just tells us it's more severe than just your average red blood loss. So because he's hit a very serious artery in his thigh, we get a sense of disgust and again the urgency and panic of trying to rescue him before the blood loss would be too severe and he would lose his life. Colour purple, as I said, also has connotations of energy and vigour, and that's all draining out of him, so that links to how he is now, that he's not going to have any energy and he feels old. The idea of deoxygenated blood also suggests like his body was shutting down, and the idea of it being exhaustion, he's overcome by exhaustion, which is obviously linking to his fatigue at the moment. The reference to his thigh, obviously that's the upper part of your leg, so that, you know, just reminds us that that was when he was able-bodied, and this is, you know, almost the last mention of his thigh, so that was his last recollection of it. So that was his final goodbye, you know, basically as the blood spurted, that was his leg saying having its last breaths. The word choice of spurted, again, it could be onomatopoeic to spurt, you know, you get the idea of it flooding out. So it just emphasises the volume, you know, the extent or the volume of blood that he was losing at that time and the severity of his injuries. You know, he was never going to recover from it. It also adds to the idea of reaching a climax. You know, like a spurt is like a fountain, isn't it? So we get the idea that he was almost close to death. There's assonance here, so remember that's a vowel sound that sounds like it's repeated like alliteration, but it's vowel sound. So we've got purple spurted. So we've got and like the alliteration of p, p, p. Both of those combined give us the sort of action that's going on, draws us into the scene, but it emphasises it could mirror the noise of the blood as it's gushing out. You know, you've got the you can almost imagine it like a carton of milk flooding out, you know, like the milk pouring out. It also emphasises that this is a significant moment in his mind and his memories and his life, because it was after that, you know, this was the turning point in his life. So it draws our attention and his attention back to that action, because this is where everything went wrong for him. So in summary, the third stanza, like stanza 2, it starts off by linking back to his past and his previous life, where he was handsome and attractive to women who wanted to draw him and paint him effectively because he was so handsome and he was full of youth and energy. However, it quickly transforms. The rest of the stanza then focuses on the impact of his injuries and the permanent damage that that's caused, and obviously the premature aging, both physically and mentally, of the soldier because of that. And it finishes the stanza with a memory of the scene of when his life was transformed on the battlefield and the severe extent of his injuries, which are used to shock and alarm us and again enhance our feelings of sympathy for the soldier. And that's stanza 3. So tomorrow, I can bet you can guess, we're going to be analysing stanza 4 of the same poem. If you haven't done so, please like, subscribe, share, and join the Facebook page and the Aim Higher YouTube channel, where all the videos are going to be forevermore. so you can enjoy them, and it'll help you add to your notes. If you're not on Facebook to get the worksheets and the poem and everything else that I'm uploading, that is how to get access to it on the Google Classroom if you're not on Facebook. And finally, I'm doing these to help you, that's all. But if you'd like to say thanks and you've got a wee pound or two to spare, then you can send it to that address. Have a fab day, everyone.